You. The Barbie movie is low-key biblical. There are a lot of things in there that we as Christians can point to and say, yes, that is good and right and true, that is a win, and I think that is just such an amazing evangelistic opportunity for us to be able to speak into culture and point it towards the realities that it's searching for and striving for and hinting at. Now, obviously, this is not to totally affirm absolutely everything in the film or to say that it is a perfect representation of a Christian worldview, but I think we do a lot better this way than by just dumping on the thing and saying the Barbie movie is awful and Christians shouldn't watch it. So, hear me out. If you don't know me though, I'm Andrew. This is All Things Theology. On the channel here we do cultural apologetics and Christian living stuff, so if you're into that sort of thing, then, I don't know, you might like the stuff here. Now, the first thing that I think the Barbie movie does really, really well that is actually a reflection of a biblical reality and truth is its depiction of the war and the tension between the sexes, between male and female. I'm sure some conservatives are gonna downplay this and be like, oh, patriarchy doesn't exist anymore, but actually I don't think that's an accurate reflection of reality or of the way that God said a fallen world is going to be. In Genesis 3:16, whenever God is laying out the curses and the consequences of Adam and Eve's sin, he says to Eve, your desire is going to be for your husband and he'll rule over you. And the scholars take that as meaning that men are going to dominate and oppress women. And has that not been the case for like ever? We certainly see that in the Bible. There are tons of instances of women being mistreated and oppressed and treated poorly. So we can acknowledge that, we can acknowledge the fallen state of the world and the way that women are mistreated, we can explain it and say here's why, but then we can point to the answer, to the redemption of Jesus in that. We can explain how God elevates women, that from the offset, from Genesis 1, way back thousands of years ago, God said that male and female are made in the image of God. That was revolutionary. And even going back 2,000 years or so to around Jesus' time, the way that the church treated women was like a huge draw factor for women, even with like their widows. In Roman culture, if you were a widow and you didn't remarry within 2 years, you were fined. Whereas in the New Testament, we've got commands to look after the widows and that they don't have to remarry. In societies where women weren't valued, the emphasis and the value that God placed on them was a huge draw factor for them to come into the church. And so we as Christians can totally affirm and say, yep, look, in a lot of ways, it's really hard to be a woman, but look at how God elevates you and gives you value. Now, second thing, I think the movie does a great job in showing the chaos and destruction and harm that comes whenever we have warped, distorted views of masculinity and femininity. Okay, because you've got the extremes of Barbie Land and Kendom. I can't believe I'm saying those words, but the Barbie Land wasn't good because no one knew where the Kens lived, no one cared, it was all about the Barbies. But then Kendom is literally just the opposite of that. They didn't care about the Barbies, it was all about the Kens. And the what was it called? Mojo Dojo Casa House. That cracked me up. Now, it does leave the question open, well, what is healthy masculinity? What is healthy femininity? And Christians are like, yo, we can speak into that. We believe in the God who defines masculinity and femininity. Quick side note though, that is a really big topic and something I'm trying to look into a bit more, so maybe there'll be more of that sort of thing on the channel in the future. We'll see. Now, third point, the misogyny was exaggerated, certainly in the Venice Beach scene, where in the space of 2 minutes, Barbie was heckled and catcalled and heard a ton of innuendos, and then she was slapped in the bum. And obviously I do want to add the caveat that living as a man in the world is not totally problem-free and easy. I don't think anyone thinks that, but the Barbie movie did show that fixing what is wrong in the world isn't about having the Barbies rule the world and oppressing the men again, as is so often the case of the oppressed become the oppressors, and then they become oppressed again, and then they become oppressors whenever they get power. That's just an endless cycle in humanity, and the Barbie movie showed that and showed the folly of that. But then it showed that the answer lies in recognizing that both the Kens and the Barbies have values. They're both equally valuable, and we'll come back to that because that I think is the most profound thing in the whole movie, and I'll touch again on it at the end of the video here. I want to pause quickly and say that if you like this video, if you think it's worth watching, then one of the ways that you can show YouTube that this is a good video is by hitting it with a like, maybe commenting something, then that just helps more people to see it. So if you think it is worth watching, then if you did those things, I would appreciate it. Thank you. Now, back to Barbie. Here's a good one, okay? You're gonna like this. The Barbie movie introduces us to the notion that one small idea can bring disruption and chaos and disorder and pain to an entire world. Specifically, the idea of the world revolves around me. It takes one person who doesn't succumb to that temptation to go back into that world and bring restoration by preaching the truth, and then that truth is spread from person to person as it's preached and proclaimed and believed. Sound familiar? That might be a stretch, but I don't think it is. I think it's quite good, actually. Another thing I loved, I've lost count, I can't remember what we're on, but I loved that Will Ferrell's character was ethically confused. It wasn't just a black and white bad guy. He did genuinely seem to care about female empowerment and it not being all about the Kens, but he also cared about the bottom line and making money with the ordinary Barbie at the end. I think that was good. It's an accurate representation of the way the world is, and it wasn't just a demonizing of all male CEOs are bad, because they're not. But they're not all good either. They're complicated, sinful people who are under the grace of God, but under the fallenness of the world, just like me. Next tiny point is that there was a positive depiction of motherhood, which I thought was really cool. Not so much of fatherhood. That's just like a running thing in movies. That was a bit of a bummer. The dad kind of sucked. He was learning Spanish for his family, to be fair, but he was totally clueless and just out of it. So I don't know where that leaves us. I want to come back to the value thing though, because I actually think that's where this movie shines and maybe where our biggest evangelistic opportunity lies when we're talking about this. The idea was that it is okay to be normal, that we all have value and worth and dignity, not because of the things we can do, not because we're a rocket scientist or a brain surgeon or all of these things, not because of what we can do, but innate in ourselves because of who we are. We have value, and that I think opens the question of why do we have value? Scientifically speaking, we're just slightly more evolved than other animals, and so there's no reason to think that we do have value, but we know as humans that we have value. We know that we're important, and we as Christians have the theology and the worldview to be able to say we are important because we're made in the image of God. Our value is not dictated by who we say we are or who others say we are or what we can do. Our value is given to us by God, and so it can't change. It's not going to be diminished. We are infinitely valuable and dignified and worthy of respect, even if we're not treated that way. That is what the Bible says about you. That's what the Bible says about me. It's what the Barbie movie says about you and what the Barbie movie says about me. And where those two overlap, I think there's just such an opportunity for us to say, yes, you're so close. Let me tell you the full story. Now, I know that some of those are maybe a bit more of a stretch than others, but we take what we can, okay? It's easy to do the whole Ben Shapiro 43 minutes dumping on the Barbie movie, why it's so woke and all this garbage. That's easy. It's easy to say everything's awful. It's a little harder, but it's a lot more beneficial to find touch points and to find places where there's a little bit of overlap and to just press into that and say you're close, you're almost there. Kind of like Paul in Athens, Acts 17, whenever he sees the statue to the unknown God and he's like, yes, an unknown God. It's Jesus, the God of heaven and earth. If we go to the culture and we say you are close, you're almost right, you know a bit of the truth because they are under God's common grace, okay? God does allow them to have a little bit of his goodness. We can then just do the extra little nudge and say, here's the full thing. The truth is even better than you think it is. After all that, I don't know, you might think, oh, this Andrew guy is really super theologically liberal and loose. I'm not, at least I don't think I am. Here are a few videos, I guess, that you could watch just to vet my theological credentials, or you'll just enjoy them. One of the two. But look, thank you for being here. I appreciate it. If you've seen the Barbie movie, I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed it, and I'm okay saying that. So, look, whatever you're doing, God bless. Enjoy the rest of your day.